Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. So this is another episode in our deal analysis series. And rather than talking about a buy and hold property or house hack property that I help buy a client with, this is another episode I'm doing with Derek Marlin of ELEVATION. And this is part of his deal or no deal segments. And today we're talking about a Congress Park Condo that you guys looked at.
Correct.
And we'll soon learn out if it was a deal or no deal.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Chris.
Yeah, glad to have you here, Derek. So set the stage up for us, because I know we talked about this, as we were talking a few weeks ago, that we were just talking about deals, both our deals, the good ones, the ones that don't come together.
Yep.
And just, for flipping, it's such a different world than what we do on the buy and hold side.
Yes.
And you're talking about a few deals that fell apart.
Yep.
And this is one of them. We're going to go into the details on it.
Yeah, so we're going to get in the details of things that didn't come together, because I think everybody talks about their success stories and their wins, and then less gets shared about the average deals. Definitely less gets shared about the losses, but there's a ton that lead up to that point, and that's the majority of where we spend our time to find the good deals. So yeah, we want to dive into something that might not actually potentially be the best deal.
I mean, my best learning experiences throughout life have been when I fall flat on my face.
Yeah.
And you learn from those.
Yeah.
Or at least I have learned from those.
Absolutely. No, it's important. And no one's going to bat 1,000 if we're using those baseball analogies. Yeah. So we just got to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and hopefully we learn from it, and hopefully the audience learns from it too.
And so this was, I think this was in your partnership flip deals, right?
So the way that this specific instance came about, it is with a client that we had done a flip with last year, and we're continuing to work with the client. They are sourcing on their own. Because that's what we want to try to teach and train, is that, we want to be here as a good deal sourcing partner, but we also want to train people to, kind of fish instead of give them the fish, if you will.
Well, also, just to be very frank, if you're bringing the deal, you're doing everything, you don't want to do a partnership flip either.
No,
right?
That's definitely true. I mean, we only have so much bandwidth to handle that. So, no, you're right. We definitely want to be able to expand and still provide value, but we can only do so much. And I'm a huge proponent of making sure that people can, over time, kind of fly on their own. I do not want to be the person that, has training and instruction, and then they have to keep coming back to us, because not only is it not scalable, but that's a disservice to the client.
Yep.
So this was a good example where a client said, hey, have an opportunity, trying to find a deal. This was on the MLS, and he had done a really good job of going through 2 different rounds of negotiations on this condo in a part of town called Congress Park, which for your audience is a great part of relatively central Denver, right by a really beautiful park. And he had gone through 2 different rounds of negotiating, and then had called us and said, you know what, can you quickly look at this? I think we're close, but I'm not 100% sure, and that's kind of where we want to be there for. And so we'll walk through exactly what this is, and trying to define what close meant, trying to get back to him quickly, and then walk through whether this is a deal or no deal.
So when you work with clients like this, do you have them send you their spreadsheet analysis and say, hey, kind of tee me up with obviously the address, what you think, and then plug in the spreadsheet, and then you go off of that and review it with them and reach out to the...
We do.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the ideal scenario, is that they have our deal analyzer spreadsheet. They've run it through the analyzer. They've pulled comps and sent it to us, so that when we get back to them, we can say, okay, let's see what you're looking at, and let's see if it hits the deal analyzer numbers that tell us either if it's a good opportunity or not. Because 9 times out of 10, clients won't really do that, and it looks good on paper with napkin math, but that is a waste of their time too.
Yeah.
So we ideally want them to do that. This was one where he had done that, and then it was still a little further apart, but before kind of backing away from the deal, he had sent me a quick text and said, you know what, I think we're really close on this. Can you take a quick look? And I said, yeah, of course. So
cool.
we jumped in after analyzing the deal.
Okay.
Yeah. So to kind of set the stage, this is a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom condo. It was definitely a cosmetic type of flip. And so it was a great potential opportunity for a client to kind of get in and out and under that 1 month time frame. And this specific one, we'll get to the numbers here in a second, but again, they'd gone through 2 rounds of negotiations, and both sides were trying to get close, which is a really good example of how these deals come down the pipeline. Is normally for the investor, it's 9 times out of 10 priced a little on the higher end. You got to wait for a price reduction coupled with submitting an offer that's a little bit lower, and see if it's something that works for both sides.
And so from your perspective, was it just overpriced on the MLS? Was that the main issue?
It was, and here's the interesting thing, and it was something that made us feel good that we're providing value to clients, and I think that we're on the right page, is We could have easily analyzed the deal and said either yay or nay, this is a good deal, but we had actually, which we'll get to in a second, this was June 9th, and we had actually bought a condo in that exact same building 4 days earlier, and so we had a ton of information on this property. And so we just kind of clicked over to the next slide, and we'll go through what the client was looking at, but we had already inspected our unit. We had found out that the electrical panel was a brand called Zinsco, and that's spelled Zinsco. That's very similar to a Federal Pacific panel, and that needs to be replaced. So we said, hey, good job using the analyzer, getting a rehab budget of around $20,000 based on a cost per square foot, but let's add $2,500 to that estimate because we just literally bought a project in that same building. You're going to have to replace the panel. And so we can look at the before and the after of our analysis, but we literally just bought a property in the exact building, so we had almost like insider information.
That's great.
Yeah.
And so as we jump in the spreadsheet, and a lot of people are listening to this, so we'll definitely talk the numbers, but also if you click on the show notes links, these spreadsheet screenshots will be in the blog post as well if you want to spend a few minutes and study those, because we're looking at right now on our computer monitor.
Yeah.
So what was, I know you said you went through a few round of negotiations, like what was it listed at, and where did you guys start negotiating at, like price-wise?
Yeah, so this property was listed at $259,000. Again, it was a one-bedroom, one-bathroom unit. There's two styles in this specific part of Congress Park. There's a 713 square foot model, and then there's an 834 square foot model. And something that's
both 1-1s?
Yes, both 1-1s. Super similar layout, just obviously slightly larger.
Okay.
But here's something that we really kind of work with our clients on is doesn't sound like that much of a difference of square feet. 110 square feet, you think, how much different is that? The feel of that in a condo is actually very different. There's two things that can happen. Either everything is just laid out easier, and when you're rehabbing it, you can get a better laid out kitchen, or, which is becoming more important in kind of the current / post-corona world, is that extra 100 square feet can get you a great little nook for a home office. And so that's really important. If we translate that down to a percentage basis, the one versus the other is actually 15% larger. I mean, that's a good chunk. It's not 1 or 2%. So if we just use numbers, that's a big difference too.
And so this was the 718 square foot model.
Yes.
What about the condo you guys bought it right before then? Same square footage or bigger?
We bought the bigger one.
Okay.
We bought the 834 square foot model. And so what the client was looking at was his numbers were a buy price of $240,000. And it got listed at $259,000. They had dropped the price to $253,000. Our client offered at $240,000, and they countered at $245,000. And so, again, that's a kind of classic back and forth, trying to find that common middle ground. And this is another point that we find really important and interesting is, I think some people would say, well, what's $5,000? In condo world, $5,000 is also a large percentage of your profit. It can be 20 to 25, maybe even 30% if the deal gets thin of your profit. So just saying, you know what, okay, I offered $240,000, but I want to get a deal going. Let's go for $245,000. That really does change the numbers. And so we had it as stick to your guns at a $240,000 purchase price. Don't go up, or that's what the client had. They had a rehab budget of $22,000, and then their ARV, which is the after repair value, or what the client's going to sell the property for after it's fixed up, was $305,000. So that kind of sets that stage. Still would have been a little thin for us. Our normal, really simple spreads that we try to find on condos and townhomes is $75,000. So whatever you buy it for, you better be able to sell it for $75,000. And on average, if you're doing about a $25,000 to $30,000 rehab, that means you're going to pull between a $25,000 and a $30,000 net profit, and those numbers work for us all day. This, as you can see, $240,000 to $305,000, it's still a little tight, even if we felt like this was realistic, which we'll get to, whether we think that's realistic or not. Scope of work, this one was definitely cosmetic. Kitchen, you were doing very similar layout. You're just taking out the old stuff, putting in new stuff.
And you're doing like brand new counters, cabinets, appliances?
We are.
Okay.
In condos and townhomes, there are a handful of times, I'd probably say 30% of the deals where the cabinets are in nice enough shape and the configuration is good, where we will paint them and then do new countertops and new backsplash. These ones that we've been working on in Congress Park, Cheeseman Park, City Park, those cool hip parts of town, we're budgeting to put new countertops and kitchen cabinets in there.
And then you're making them a little like trendier as
Yes.
well for that? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, way more trendy. Going with the quartz that many times has the nice gray vein through it,
Yeah.
going with a little bit nicer backsplash because you're using such a small footprint that you're literally talking a couple $100s to go the nicest quality stuff versus a 3,000 square foot home. You're talking a couple $1,000s for much more product. So this one was really straightforward. Similar kitchen, redoing the bathroom in a similar format, doing flooring, doing paint, doing all the fixtures and finishes, which are light fixtures, faucets, kitchen cabinet hardware, doorknobs, all that kind of stuff, and just kind of a classic 30-day rehab. And it was relatively straightforward as far as the actual work that was going to be done.
What type of flooring would you put in a place like this?
So these ones we always put in actually click-in laminate flooring.
Okay.
So we do, it's called LVL, the luxury vinyl laminate, and it's anywhere from about $1.70 to a square foot to $2.75 per square foot, depending upon the level of condo that we want to do.
So luxury vinyl laminate, is
Yep.
that the same thing as like the luxury vinyl planks?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
It's the same thing as the planks, and so you're clicking those in together.
Rather than the peel and stick?
Exactly.
Okay.
Definitely not peel and stick.
Because I know a lot of the rentals we buy and we do rehab on the rental side, we do like that luxury vinyl plank and it's peel and stick. It looks great.
Yeah, for rentals, absolutely.
Yeah. So if it's a similar product, but this is just clicking.
It's click-in, and there's some products that have, it's called under laminate, so it's the padding underneath. Some of them have it pre-built in. There's some really cool ones out there that have cork underneath, and so it's a simple install. Other ones we've run into, depending upon kind of how wavy the flooring is, you need to buy that extra $200 or $300 worth of padding, almost like you were doing carpet, but it's a much thinner product. And so, you're just clicking it in. And the reason we do that is because not only is it simple to install, it's super durable, and it just makes your property look so much longer and wider rather than carpet. Almost makes it feel a little bit enclosed, and we run it everywhere. Entryway, kitchen, dining room, living room, master bedroom. The only place we don't put that is in the bathroom. We do tile on the floor.
You don't put carpet in the bathrooms?
Crazy enough. No, we normally buy stuff with carpet in the bathrooms and rip it out.
So is that the luxury vinyl laminate?
Mm-hmm.
And it's about the same durability as that luxury vinyl plank?
Yes.
Okay, it's just...
Yeah, and actually it's probably a little bit more durable because it's a little bit thicker millimeter. So normally you're like a 10 to 12 millimeter in thickness. So you're probably going to get a little bit more wear and tear out of it, and that's because it's a bit more expensive.
Okay.
Yeah. Similar concept, but just a little bit of a step up. But still looks really, really good. I mean, this is stuff that we're
I love the way those stuff look
selling,
like.
$350,000 product, and it still looks really, really nice. Yeah. So
I want that stuff in my house. We have engineered hardwood flooring, and it's junk.
Yeah.
Our dogs have destroyed it.
Totally. Yep. It makes a big difference. And that product has come a long way. And the big thing is, it's super simple to install. With that being said, there's always a caveat that if it's not installed properly, it sticks out like a sore thumb, and you have to have contractors redo it. So you really have to get that true click, so there's very little seam in between each individual piece. Because if there's gaps, and then you run that 15 feet in the living room, you're screwed. So it has to be done right, but as long as it is, it's easy to go in and a great product.
And it's a floating floor?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep, floating floor, so there's a little bit of flexibility.
Yeah.
And then it helps so that it doesn't have that hollow sound too when you walk into the property, so it's just a good sound barrier. HOAs like it because we're putting another level of padding in to help with sound protection, so it's kind of a win-win across the board. Yeah, so kind of simple. In this specific example, the client sent us one comp at 305, and we weren't told of other ones. So I think that's a key takeaway is be careful when you're looking at one individual comp. In this specific example of what the client sent our way is we'll go over kind of their overall metrics. It would be just over a $20,000 net profit. The ROI is a little low on this one. It would be 7%. And then the dollars per day, which is, again, the amount of net profit divided by how many days it's going to take you to finish and sell this property, is 336. So for the elevation metrics, it's a little bit low. I've got kind of the red light, if you will, on ROI and the red light on dollars per day. Net profit is just over $20,000, so that's a yellow. In the client's world, and we definitely want to be sensitive, everybody's got a little bit different investment guidelines. And so we caution people not to go too low, because not only are you risking money, but you're spending time. So to do all this work and let's say make $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, I don't think that's a good use of time. But something that might be green in our world of a $25,000 profit, but it's a $20,000 profit for a client, and they do one or two of those and they're adding to their portfolio or they're reinvesting back in the market, that's still a good deal. So for them, I'm like, okay, you know what? At first glance, this looks like it could be, a potential deal. So that's what the client sent to us.
So I'm looking through your spreadsheet. I'm just kind of curious. I see the commission on the sale, so you got 4%, because you usually do it in-house.
We do it in-house.
So you keep it cheaper than you're still doing normal, like buyer's co-op?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, we are. So yeah, if the client was selling this, we're happy. A lot of times we sell flips on behalf of our clients and pass along that savings. So some people would definitely sell it closer to the 5% range. So that would potentially cut into the profit in a deal as well.
Well, that's nice that you guys can sell it for less.
Yeah, we can sell it for less.
Wow.
Yep, as a benefit. But they've got some carrying cost for doing it for a month. Really being sensitive to the buy side costs. Your listening audience knows that we always offer to pay for closing costs up front to help the deal get done, and then we do a hold open policy on the back end, which means you're only paying for insurance on the title for the amount of time you held it, and it's far less expensive to use that same title company to sell it on the back end.
So I see on here that for the financing and the rehab cost, 0 points.
Right.
And 8% money. Is this a private money loan?
Yep, private money
giving?
loan.
Okay.
Yep, private money loan. Yeah, your clients are either working 100% with cash, so you're taking, in this example, you're potentially putting another $3,000 in profit back in your pocket. You're borrowing private money, which is kind of that 6 to 10% roughly, and not paying points. Or clients are using the traditional hard money, which is paying 1 to 2 points or 1 to 2 percentage of whatever your purchase price is up front. So $2 to $3 grand, and then paying normally 10 to 12% interest for their carrying costs.
So if I recall, if you guys, the way you structure financing is the client, hey, the points coming out of their profit share,
right?
But the holding cost, you guys split, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, correct. Yep, exactly. And this was an example where we had done a partnership flip with the client, but they're kind of doing a great job of kind of graduating, if you will. So this was just more the client was looking to do this project kind of on his own, and then we would help from a consulting fashion.
Oh, okay.
And that's really what we wanted, where if a client brings us a deal, we want to partner with them, show them the ropes and help run the project. But ideally, we want them to kind of graduate so that the next deal they can do on their own. If they still want to work with us on a consulting basis, then there's not a revenue share. It's just a flat fee. And then again, we want people after, a couple of deals or one deal, if you're confident with it, we want people to be able to do things on their own. We don't want to have to feel like people are tethered towards working with us. So this is a cool progression of somebody who's a super bright gentleman and is working to add a handful of rentals to his portfolio, do a handful of flips so that he's got some flexibility in deciding whether he wants to stay in the corporate world or whether he wants to make real estate his full-time gig. So he's right in the sweet spot of doing things really well to set himself up for a lot of success.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see your analysis.
Okay, so here's our analysis. And again, this goes back to we had literally bought a property 4 days prior to. So we had a ton of knowledge and information on this deal. Again, I ran it as a purchase price of $240. Let's say they stuck to their guns.
So that's the same that he had?
That's the same thing that he had. Again, we talked about that electrical panel. So the rehab budget, it would have been spot on. And again, a lot of this stuff, clients are looking at it and putting in an offer and then double checking their math. So we added $2,500 to the rehab budget. So that went up to $24,500. But here's the kicker. The max ARV in our eyes is $275,000.
Ooh, that's a big difference.
It's a big difference.
He's at 305 in the other one, right?
It is. And there's two reasons for that. Again, they are using the $305,000 comp was the 834 square foot unit. So you're doing a little bit of apples to oranges type of a comparison, and you're only using one individual comp. The second reason that we went with that is There was a comp in that building of the smaller size, the 718 square foot size, and that sold for 260. That was relatively fixed up, and it was 14 months ago. So I still think 275 is realistic. It's hard to, normally we don't project appreciation, but we know it happens. We'd rather be a little bit on the safer side and be happy if it runs up. But definitely using the same comp as the other super fixed up unit that sold a handful of months earlier, I just don't see that happening. And then there were no other comps. There were other comps in the area, but there were actually, when we pulled our comps, we pulled 6 total. 3 of them were in the exact same building, which again, one of them was the one that we bought. And then the other 2 were in the building. 3 were in very similar and in close proximity styles of properties. The other good thing that we knew is, again, it's still cosmetic. You're putting in that electrical panel. To give your audience an idea on where we were, again, we just bought this 2 weeks ago. We bought the larger unit for $223. So the client on the unit that we bought listed it for $235, and we got it under contract within that first weekend. We inspected it, and the electrical panel needed to be replaced, so we got another price reduction. So we got it down to $223 for a larger unit. So that just made me say, you know what, this is definitely a risky proposition. So when we reran the numbers, buying it at $240, selling it at $275, rehab budget of $24,500, everything else being the same, it's a negative almost 4% return. It's potentially an $11,000 loss, and so of course you're losing money every day. So for us, that was just too much of a stretch, and I just said, you know, I would, if I'm in your shoes, I'm 100% passing, and just stick to your guns, and either see if you can negotiate the price down, or just keep looking. So this one was, again, on paper up front, it looked potentially okay, but in condos, 100 square feet makes a big difference.
Oh, yeah.
Single family homes, it's not nearly as much. If you're talking about a 2,800 square foot home versus a 2,900 square foot home, that doesn't feel much different. You can be right in that same sales price point on the back end, but condos and townhomes, it makes a big difference, especially when you can pull comps that have this smaller unit. I just can't see selling from 260 to selling at 305. That's obviously a significant jump. So this in our world was a no deal. And to the client's credit, they did a great job and kind of looked at the numbers again, saw it the way that we saw it, and agreed and passed, and they're still kind of looking and living to fight another day. So I really want to thank the client and sticking to their guns, because this would, again, if you think, oh man, what's 240 versus 245, let's just do it to get a project going. In our world, that would have been definitely a loss, I think.
So on your condo that you bought, is your rehab budget about the same, about right around $25,000 for everything?
Ours is a little bit more because ours needed a little bit more work. The other condo that they were looking at needed a little bit less work. So
Okay.
our rehab budget is $29,000.
Okay.
For a bigger, so you're looking at a little bit bigger footprint, and then again, we're doing a little bit nicer kind of quality in the kitchen and the bathroom to get that high-end ARV. But yeah, our rehab budget is just over $29,000.
Okay. So it sounds like, I think you already gave away the punchline. That was a no deal.
This was a no deal.
So no success in renegotiating the price low or anything like
Correct.
that?
Yep. And again, I really applaud them. No, they couldn't get it down to where they wanted. At this point, if you re-looked at it, you'd needed to get it, again, back down that 220 to 230 best case scenario. I just looked before we went to record this podcast. It is under contract. So someone bought it. Or someone is going to buy it. But again, you don't know whether it's somebody who's going to flip it. Maybe somebody wants to buy it and keep it as a rental. Maybe somebody does their own work and making $10,000 is good for them. And that's fine too. But again, for kind of our business model and trying to be safe and move your money quickly, it was a no deal.
What would that condo rent for? If you even know off the top of your head, I'm just curious.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I haven't been in the rental game as much, but it's a really, really cool building, and it's a really good part of town in Congress Park. So, I mean, I would think probably at least $1,200 a month, maybe a little more. It is a one-bedroom, so I do think there's a ceiling on that, no matter how nice you make that. So I think you're probably maxing out at that.
So it'd still be a pretty cruddy rental then.
I think it would be rough for a rental. Even if you put in, let's say you shaved 10 grand off your rehab budget, you're still not saving that much money. And I don't know if you can truly cash flow that. I think it still gets really tight as a rental.
Yeah, I mean, we've never bought any rentals in Congress Park. We've looked at every now and then. I was just kind of curious. I haven't looked at any condos there for a long, long time. And because that very reason, they're a great part of town.
Yeah.
And people pay top dollar to live there, but not top dollar to rent there.
And that's the case. I think the numbers maybe start to make sense if you can get a 2-bedroom in there, because then you don't quite hit that ceiling.
Yeah.
But yeah, 1 bedroom. And then you start to look at somebody saying, well, dang, I can't afford to buy something. And so I think we might start to lose out there from a rental perspective. So this one's a little tight, I think, for a rental.
Great. Anything else about this deal before we wrap it up?
No, I think that just the formal way to look at this is just kind of stick to your guns. We look at what did we learn from it, what was our due diligence, and kind of how do you tee yourself up for success. And again, that's just sticking to your guns and making sure that you can run the numbers. Again, nobody is, especially when you're working in the condo and townhome world, it's a little harder to comp those than single-family properties, and we're not all projecting the same sales price point. So, but when you're that close, I'd rather say this looks great and it's a $30,000 profit, and maybe we are okay with 25. But when it's really thin to start and then we dive in and it's a loss, you got to pass on that one. And then it's all about, we said this in the last episode, but being really diligent on your comps. That honestly is the most important thing of setting how much can you realistically sell it for, because your budget can be spot on, your system can be dialed in, but if you don't acquire it right, you're screwed. So that's really the big takeaway is you gotta look at more comps, you gotta dive deeper. Don't pick not only the one outlier, but just don't pick a single comp.
Yeah. Well, this has been great, Derek. So a couple things I want to mention before we wrap up here. I know this is the second one we've recorded in the Deal or No Deal podcast. I know we got 2 more slated. We're doing 2 more of those. Listeners out there, I would love to hear your feedback. I enjoy learning this stuff. And I think a lot of you guys realize we're starting to do a lot more deal analyses on the podcast and build out the library on the website. So feedback, ideas is always appreciated. If you got other data that you want to see in these deal analyses, let us know. We're happy to kind of go into more details, or if we're leaving out things. The second thing, Derek, you got your first academy coming up.
Yep.
I know that got originally postponed because of COVID, the whole world did.
Right.
But give that a quick plug. When's that and what is it?
Yeah, so we're going to do our Elevation Training Academy, which is a cool, very intensive 2-day system, 2-day weekend, where we're actually going to do it on the 23rd and 24th of July. And the first full day is teaching in the classroom. Because of COVID, like you mentioned, we're really shrinking our numbers down. So we've got this really neat space in a co-work space in Inglewood. So we're going to be right around 12 attendees, so everybody can be nicely spaced out. And then the second day will be half in the classroom and then the other half in the field learning at one of our projects. So we can teach people every step of our system and then go show them in the field so they really see reality. And then the follow-up after that is clients get, this is a good example of our Deal or No Deal. We updated our fixtures and finishes, or we updated our analyzer spreadsheet. We send that back out to anybody that's worked with us in the past. So people will get access to that, and then deal sourcing too. So we're always looking for stuff, and like we talked about before, we hit 4 or 5 projects and kind of max out with our current staffing levels, and so we're happy to work with clients and help source on their behalf too.
Cool. And just go to Elevation's website, right?
Yep, so just elevationinvest.com is our website, and you can find info about not only the company, but also the academy or our one-on-one consulting program.
And if, I know we talked about this off before we hit record, people use DIRE for the coupon code.
Yes.
You'll give the listeners some extra consulting from you and your team once they get into a project, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So for your listeners, it's the DIRE code, and then they'll get some extra one-on-one consulting for any deal that they're looking to get. So we kind of thought that would be the most valuable, and it'd be with myself and my team. So they'll get overall systems guidance. They'll get project management guidance from my project manager, who's got tons of GC experience. And then they'll get kind of sales and acquisitions experience from my business development manager. So we'll hit them in 3 different areas that should really help grow their business.
Great. So if you guys are interested, reach out to Derek. I mean, I'm always a big proponent of if it's good education, it's worth the money. But also, hey, reach out to make sure it's the right education for you.
Yeah.
But I think if anyone's interested in flipping in Denver, you'd be the first stop I would go to for education.
Thank you.
So Derek, thank you for doing this. look forward to doing more of these.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.